Remember that in the last unit I talked about the importance of our inner world. And now you will understand it all the more in light of the fact that if our inner world is not active and alive and rich, we will become more and more and more like pieces of rock. Now that is a very terrible tragedy. And very often we do not know this is happening to us. As a result of various adjustments and various experiences that we go through, slowly our sensitivities decline and our heart becomes a piece of stone. Now, this is not growth, this is death. A corpse cannot respond to the surroundings, it has no sensitivity, it has no feeling. So even while we are alive, and sadly even when we are young, we could reach or we could decline into that very sad and terrible state. Now this is something that should never happen to us. So it's important that we protect ourselves against those possibilities, experiences, and ways of life which turn us slowly into insensitive objects like stone. Now, for example, ask yourself, and I ask myself, how do I live in my house? I can live like a piece of stone, an important piece of stone maybe, a loved and cherished piece of stone maybe in my house. You can do the same in your house and have no responsibility, and nothing that happens in the house, no problem, no need in the house matters to you. You are only existing as an object in the house. Now, if you are doing that, I don't know if you are doing that, only you know. I hope you are not doing that. If you are doing that, tell me, how does this building have the touch of a home for you? Now, I'm saying something very serious. It's not enough that we have beautiful homes, beautiful houses, or impressive houses. That's a better way of putting it. It's not enough that we have big mansions, well designed, beautifully constructed, expensive, but looking very impressive. It means nothing. The question is, does our house also become a home for us? Now, a house is an inanimate object. It cannot do anything by itself. So it's wrong on my part to say, does a house become a home? No house can become a home by itself. But, and that's the beautiful thing, we can transform our houses into homes. That depends entirely on us. And I believe that one of the things that transforms a building into a home is our sensitivity. And what is sensitivity? Sensitivity is the flow of something beautiful and something human from within us to the world around us. Now, let me use a conventional expression and say, sensitivity is the light that we emit and illumines the world around us. And this is something that all of us are capable of doing. But this is not the case. I have been heading an institution. I've been a teacher among young people for 42 years. I lived among them. And one thing that I've heard repeatedly from parents, in the north, probably this applies to the south as well, but my experiences in Kerala are limited. I've recently returned to Kerala after 45 years of stay in Delhi. But this is a universal problem. I have seen it in other countries, many countries that I have repeatedly visited. I've stayed in homes, so I know what I'm talking about. Young people tend to live in their homes like pieces of stone. They're not bothered about what happens. They're not sensitive to the dreams and aspirations of their parents. They're not even sensitive to the aches and pains of their parents. I've had innumerable parents come to me repeatedly and say, "Sir, please talk to our son, please talk to our daughter." And I'll tell them, "Your parents, why don't you talk to them?" They would say, "No, they will not listen to us. We can't even have a conversation with our children." And I used to be amazed. How is it possible for a human being to reach that stage of utter insensitivity to one's own parents? Now, the same thing applies to studies. Now, a good student is a student who is sensitive to themes, ideas, insights. Sensitivity is an important attribute, an important strength in a student. I would say the beauty of a student is sensitivity. Now, the other way of looking at it is sensitivity expresses itself as keenness. If you're sensitive, you're keen to know if you can do something in the house to improve the happiness in the house. If you're a keen student, if you're a sensitive student, you're keen to know something more about what you have learned today. So this is a great strength. And if you have this strength when you are young, and it's a strength that is already there, but it needs to be cultivated. It has to be defended against all kinds of deadening influence around us. There are many people who think that it's an advantage, it's an achievement to be stone-like. I'm not affected by anything in the world. Pardon me, that's not an achievement. It's a very terrible, disappointing state. If you're not affected by anything in the world, what does the world mean to you? So it's very important for us to realize that our sensitivity needs to be developed. Our sensitivity needs to be celebrated, because that's who we are, and that's the beauty of our being. And that's the quality that influences the way people experience us. And also, that is a way that determines what we do, how well we do it, how long we do it, and how much we learn from any given situation. So my friends, today I want to close by making an ardent plea, a very humble request. Remain sensitive. Respond to human needs. Respond to whatever is good and beautiful around you. When I look at the nature around me, my heart dances with delight. And I cannot help thanking God for the beauty of the world in which I'm able to live. And if that gift is there, life is beautiful, life is a feast, life is a banquet, life is a celebration. And may that excitement, may the light, the radiance of that excitement be always present on your face and your person. And then people will experience you very differently. And this is all the more beautiful, and it will be all the more valued today, because this is not the trend in our times. People are moving around like continents of darkness. People find it difficult to smile, as though their face is made of stone. No, we are not stone. We are very flexible, we are resilient. Every muscle can twitch, every cell can dance. And every experience means a lot to us. Every human being means a lot to us. Let us now bring the richness of our being into everything that we do, in every context. And let's make a difference for the better wherever we are. Isn't that a great thing to do? Let's try. Thank you. See you next time. Good morning, friends, and welcome to our series on taking care of our youth. I hope you have started thinking about the various important aspects of our theme. We have a long way to go yet. We will take our steps slowly. It's important that at each step we understand something of very basic value, so that when we build the mansion of our personality, we build sensibly and build it strong, so that our life endures the stress and strain that living in the present context always brings upon us. You know better than I do that we are living at a time when thousands and thousands of young men and women are committing suicide. As per government statistics in India, about 150,000 people commit suicide annually. Social scientists tell me that because of the stigma attached to suicide, only 1 case out of 5 actual suicides will be reported, which actually means that the actual number of people who take their life is in the vicinity of 7 lakhs, 7.5 lakhs. Now that's a huge tragedy. Why does it happen? And that is something that we need to look at. People kill themselves when they feel that their life is not worth it anymore. Life is the greatest value a human being can have. Then how does it come about that it becomes such a worthless burden that young people want to destroy it? And this is something that looms large in the horizon of modern life, and therefore we need to keep that also as the background of our thinking. And this is one of the reasons why I do programs like this. Now, in order to give you a flavor of what I'm sharing with you, today I want to begin by giving you some impression, some idea about my own life. Because after all, a person says what he is. Whatever I am sharing with you and whatever I will ever share with you is what I have learned from my own life. So it's important for you that you know me as a human being. I'm sharing some of these things with you in the hope that these things encourage you. I was born and brought up in poverty. You can imagine what kind of poverty it was. There was absolutely nothing promising in the beginning of my life. There was hardly enough food to eat. There was no book to read. There was no stimulating intellectual company. I studied in the most common of schools without any facilities whatsoever, except loving teachers who always encouraged me, and I still retain a warm gratitude towards each one of them. And I did not have anyone to guide me except my own mother, for whom I retain absolute respect even at this age, because she did her best. And she gave me this impression that I was a valuable human being. And she used to say, "Son, there is light within you. Time will bring it out." This is what she used to say. And I latched onto it. I held on to it as my life support system. I studied in a lower primary school in my village, Kallamala, and went on to Bishop Hodges School, Mavelikara. And from there went to Bishop Moore College, which was just being established. Even my college did not have a library. A library was being created when I was studying there. So I was intellectually starved. But again, there were a few teachers, among them Professor Nanan Koshi, who was the head of the English department, who stands out as a major intellectual influence on me. But then I had the good fortune to go to St. Stephen's College, Delhi. But when I went there, I was completely lost. I was just not ready. I have to say this, that the difference in standards of education between Kerala and Delhi is shocking. In the first couple of months, I could not understand what my professors in the university were saying in their lectures. I nearly thought of running away from there. But I decided to stick it out, and I worked and worked and worked like one possessed. And to cut a long story short, I mastered the language in less than 6 months. And I was then ahead of the pack. And from there until now, by the grace of God, my life has been a great adventure. A language that I had never heard spoken in my house or in my neighborhood became my passport to the rest of the world. And I will not now go into the details of wherever I have gone, the levels I reached, the people I addressed, all the rest of it. Maybe sometime, occasionally, there will be opportunities to refer to it. Now, why I am sharing this very brief summary of a long journey is this. The one most powerful lesson in my life is that you don't have to be constrained, limited, held back by the limitations of your circumstances. External circumstances need not define you, need not paralyze you, need not hold you back. You have the power in you to triumph over your circumstances. And in fact, and that's the greatest thing in my life, to turn these very hindrances, these very limitations into your advantage. And they become the stepping stones to something higher. Now, very briefly, let me say this to you, that in the mystery of human life, there is a definite place for hardships and suffering. This I need to emphasize because this is quite contrary to what people think today. Everybody has an idea of what is good life. People think that a good life is a life free from all stress and strain, all struggle and all challenges. That's just not the case. It's a boring and bland life. It's something I don't want for myself. I would like hardships, difficulties, challenges, problems that I can face, and face in such a way that by facing and overcoming them, I take a step forward in my life. And therefore, when I look back on my life, especially in the early tentative days of my life, I thank God for the difficulties, awesome difficulties that I had to grapple with. And they made me stronger. They made me humbler. They made me open to the possibilities of life. For example, poverty taught me that every small scrap of paper, every piece of straw, every pencil, every blade of grass is valuable. Everything becomes valuable in the light of poverty. Everything becomes rubbish through the eyes of affluence. And that is something that became of immense value in my life as an author. Today, when I look at a piece of paper, when I look at a news item, when I look at a casual statement made by someone, I know that it connects to something very important in my philosophical life. So the great blessing of poverty is that it opens your eyes to the value of what otherwise would seem to be worthless and unimportant. And this makes me share with you the sad fact that today many people walk over unthinkingly treasures of life. At every step, we're actually walking on treasures. But we keep our eyes closed and we walk along because our mind is engaged somewhere else. We're not really engaged with life. We're engaged towards the small little trinkets that the market may offer. And this is what blinds us to the beauty of life. So from my experience, my personal life, I want to encourage you, especially those of you who think that you are in a state of underprivilege, that compared to your friends, you don't have the financial resources to afford the facilities that you deserve. That's not the case at all. Actually, you could be at a great advantage. So, the strength of a human being is not in sitting comfortably over favorable circumstances, which anybody can do. The strength of a human being is in accepting a situation as it is, no matter what that situation is, and in entering into the fullness of its possibilities. Every situation has possibilities that are truly exciting. But you don't see those possibilities in full before you enter it. Life is often compared to a journey for a good reason. Now, as you walk along a landscape, at the beginning of your walk, you don't see everything. As you take each step forward, you see more and more and more of this landscape. And that's what life is. Now, very often people stand on the threshold of an opportunity and say, oh, what does it have to offer? How do you know what does it have to offer? So my request, my advice to young people is, accept what life offers, but make it what you can, using your strengths, your imagination, your spiritual powers. And this is exactly where spiritual powers come in. Spiritual powers are irrelevant to the life of a person who leads a routine life. You don't spiritual powers to eat 3 meals a day. You don't actually need spiritual powers to compete in the markets of the world. You don't need spiritual powers to outwit a fellow human being. But you definitely need spiritual powers to see hidden possibilities and to cultivate the strength to endure the struggle it takes to pursue those possibilities until you make them real. That's called spiritual power. And this is something that is of extreme importance, particularly in our times. And I thought I would commend this to you based on my own personal experience. If I did not have that strength, I wonder where I would have ended up. If I had cast myself in the role of a victim of circumstances, which many people do, I would have destroyed myself. No, God gave me the strength and the wisdom to believe that from Him we can derive the strength to triumph over our circumstances. And once you do that, it gives you the kind of confidence that no power in the world can neutralize. My life all along has been a great struggle. Those who know me will readily agree with it. It's been a great battle. But at each step, this was my strength. I knew, as a verse in the Bible says, weeping may come at night and endure through the night, but joy comes in the morning. But you have to endure the night to be able to see the joy that comes in the morning. If you lose heart, if you give up your struggle, when the night endures or before the night ends, you will never live to see the joy that comes in the morning. So my humble request to all of you is to bide your time. Life will confront you with difficulties because, as I said, these are the media. Do that. Always see not only the night that endures, but also the morning that's about to come. So life's great, but strengthen yourself. Develop the inner resources that it takes to face the full face of life, to endure its pressure, its thrust, and to continue your journey as victors and not as victims. So see you soon in the next unit. Good morning and welcome back to our series on taking care of our youth. Today, let's look at a very important aspect of our responsibility. I would begin by pointing out a difference between human beings and machines. Why do I do that? Because in this age of machines, there is a danger that human beings will think of themselves as only superior machines. We are not better machines. We are not machines at all. We are completely different from the genre called machines. There are various differences, but I would only point out one difference, and that is, it is enough that machines are understood by others. Suppose you buy a car. You need to know how it operates. The car has no need to know how it works. The car has no way to know how it works. You wear a watch, the same principle. You use a mixie, same principle. No machine can know or need to know what it is or how it works. It is enough that others know what it is and how it works. This is what is common to the world of machines. When it comes to human beings, it's extremely important that we know who we are and therefore how we ought to work. However, those of us who know the history of philosophy and the history of ideas, we know that this has been the most important problem in human life. The one thing that human beings do not know is themselves. Greek philosophy began with an exhortation attributed to a god called Apollo. And that exhortation is, know thyself. Understand yourself. All of philosophy is, one way or another, an attempt to understand the human predicament, the human being, in terms of various processes. Likewise, spirituality is a tradition of understanding what a human being is and therefore can well be. Now, while philosophy is man-made wisdom, very valuable, man-made wisdom to help us understand who we are and what our destiny is, spirituality is what we call the inspired tradition, which means revealed tradition or God-inspired tradition of enabling us to understand who we are. Now, I will not go into spirituality and philosophy more than this at this point in time. In our present unit, in the next 4 or 5 minutes, what I would like us to do is to wake up to a particular beautiful aspect of this process of understanding oneself. So, at the beginning, we acknowledge that we don't know ourselves. Very often, we do not know what we are doing or why we are doing what we are doing. If you ask people why they are consuming alcohol, why they are smoking cigarettes, which can harm their lungs, why they are wasting time, which is not good for them, they will say, well, we don't know, but we are doing it. And in fact, a large number of things, for example, gossip, character assassination, playing petty politics, spreading hatred. You ask people, why are you doing it? They really do not know. Many, many things that we are very excited about are things that we do not know the reason for or the meaning of. And as young people, it's extremely important for us to separate such meaningless, self-wasteful activities so that our energies are not wasted over unhelpful things, superfluous, irrelevant things, but are focused on what makes long-term sense. And to be able to do that, we should always keep in mind who we are or what our destiny is. Now, when I was growing up, I did not know this very, very clearly, but I had some kind of a vague intuition that in spite of the very unpromising circumstances in which I found myself, there was a destiny that was great. So I began to actually look at the given situation or emerging situation, not only in terms of what it appeared to be, but how far that particular situation connected to my destiny and how far it would take me in attaining my destiny. Now, all this is not in a kind of clear, heavy theoretical sense that happens in life. This happens in a very light, subtle, intuitive fashion. Now, what we need to know at this stage is this, that the difficulty in knowing ourselves is to a large extent because of the process of our continuing growth. And why we need to know this, because otherwise we'll get frustrated. Now, you can have a certain understanding of yourself as a child, but understand yourself only as a child. You're not required to know yourself fully or understand your destiny in its totality when you are an infant. But when you grew from being a child to a teenager, a young person, you began to understand yourself not any longer as an infant or a child, but as a young adult. Now from there you will move on, you'll become an adult proper. Then you will understand yourself as an adult, and later on you will become a middle-aged person, and thereafter an old person. Then your understanding will change. So this is to be accepted, that we will never have a fixed understanding of ourselves, and it is very good that we don't have a fixed understanding, because if your understanding about yourself is fixed, what it means is that you are not growing at all. So it's like, for example, if you look at nature, there is a seed. Now you sow the seed sprouts. It becomes a seedling. Now you plant the seedling, it slowly grows and it becomes a mature plant. And then it begins to blossom. And then the blossom becomes another seed. So at each stage there is change, there is transformation, and together with this change, the understanding of itself, if the plant is able to understand itself, the understanding will change. It must change. So we are in this process of continuing change, but now this is the most important thing. In the midst of these continuous changes, there is something that is constant, something that doesn't change, and that is our destiny as a human being. Now that remains the same. Whether you are a 5-month-old baby or you are a 50-year-old man, your destiny remains the same. You are in the process of fulfilling or running away from your destiny. Therefore, in our life strategy, in the way we live from day to day, we need two things. And this is the most important thing I want to share with you. As we face each day's experiences, opportunities and challenges, we must keep two things simultaneously in our mind. One is, what